Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending our event today. My name is Anna Dixon, and I'm a junior accounting major at the university, and I am one of the fortunate members of the Cottrell Scholars, which is a group of business students dedicated to academic studies, as well as opportunities to leverage leadership on and off campus to build strong communities and also to build our future careers. It is my honor today to introduce our keynote speaker, Elana Meyers Taylor. Leadership in athletics and business have great similarities. They both require great effort and sacrifice. They require a willingness to take risks, they require healthy competition, and they both require that leaders seek to break barriers. Elana has done all of these things. Beginning her bobsledding career in 2007, Elana won 2 Olympic medals, became the first woman to pilot a mixed-gender 4-man bobsled team, and this February, she became the first female U.S. bobsled driver ever to win the World Championship. Off the ice, Elana serves as athletic director for the USA Bobsled and Skeleton Federation and has volunteered her time with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, Classroom Champions, and other nonprofit organizations. Elana is a graduate of George Washington University, and in 2013, she married her best friend and fellow bobsledder, Nick Taylor. Please help me give a warm welcome to our speaker, Elana Meyers Taylor.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I see the room is filled with some amazing leaders from the community, from the school, and from all across Georgia. So it's a great pleasure to be here. Being a Georgia native myself, I'm so excited to speak to you guys. So thanks for having me. Whenever I prepare for speeches, I always like to give a little background about myself. But preparing for this speech, I realized that bobsled is not something that's typically a hotbed in Atlanta. It's simply something people don't have a lot of context about. So I wanted to provide you guys with a little bit of context to what exactly is I do with the following video.
Meyers Taylor led after 3 heats with 3 track records and a new start record. She didn't break the record on the final trip, but she did take the gold. The first American woman to win a bobsleigh world championship gold ever, and the first to beat the Germans on their home ice in Winterberg.
So as you can see from the video, I am the pilot on the U.S. bobsled team. In 2-women bobsled, there's a brakeman and a driver, and I am that driver. A driver is a natural position of leadership, but I'll give you a lot of examples to show you how I came to that position and what leadership has actually shown me throughout the years and throughout my life as a bobsledder. So just to provide a little bit more context, I'll show you how we actually drive a bobsled. Much like Cool Runnings explained to us, it's not entirely accurate. It's a great Disney film. I love it. I even have it in German, which is one of the bobsled language, but it's not entirely accurate. So as you can see by the screen over here, a bobsled works on a pulley system. So if we want to go left, we pull left. If we want to go right, we pull right. Another thing about bobsled that you might not understand is while we're doing that, pulling left and right, we're going 75 to 92 miles per hour down a tube of ice. It's super fast, super dangerous, and yes, I have crashed, and we'll get into that a little later. But bobsled is so complex that sometimes you're just opening and closing your hand. Even though on the diagram it had pulling left and right, you're just opening and closing your hand. So we're making rapid decisions at rapid speeds. Very dangerous sport. And then on the next slide I'll show, we actually have the track in Sochi, where the 2014 Olympics were. And on this track, you'll see the different curves, but another thing you'll also see is you'll see G-forces. So in a bobsled, we encounter a lot of G-forces. In this track, I think the highest G is 4.8. Other tracks will be 5 to 6 G-forces. So what that means is we're undergoing the same pressures as a fighter pilot. And at these rapid speeds, 75 to 92 miles per hour, we're undergoing all of this, making rapid decisions, and doing all this stuff in a sled. So yes, all of us are a tad bit crazy. It's okay though, because sometimes it's the crazy that makes the genius. So how did I get into bobsled? How does a girl from Georgia get into bobsled? It's a question I get asked often. So when I was 9, I decided I was going to be an Olympian. At the age of 9, you have no context about what this actually means. At the age of 9, I think, an Olympian, it's really cool. I see it on TV. That's what I want to do. I want to compete at the highest level for my country. Without any context, I made that decision, and I was firm in my decision. Later in life, I started playing softball, and I thought I would make the Olympic team in softball. Being from Georgia, that makes sense. A nice warm weather sport, something I could do year round here, and I truly loved it. I went on to play at George Washington University, and then I went on to play professionally as well. I had a tryout with the Olympic team, but unfortunately, it was the absolute worst tryout in the history of tryouts. I was swinging at balls over my head. I was doing all kinds of things that was clear I wasn't going to make the Olympic softball team. And with 2008 coming along, that was the last Olympics softball would be in, so I knew my shot at living my softball dream was over. But I decided at 9 I was going to be an Olympian. So what choice did I have? I needed to find a way to be one. Luckily, my parents are people who know things about sports and watch sports quite often. So they were watching bobsled one day, and were like, why don't you try this? Why not? And as a kid, I used to go head first and feet first on skateboards downhill. Because that makes sense, being in Georgia. Of course I'm going to do something warm, but that was the closest thing I'd ever done to a bobsled. So watching it, I was like, oh, of course I could do that. Why not? Little did I know it would be a lot harder than that, but we'll get into that a little later. But needless to say, with my parents' encouragement, I went up to Lake Placid. I emailed a coach, and they said I could try out for the team. So I went up there, and 8 years later, I stand before you, having made 2 Olympic teams. Thank you. And that's a little context about me. But what we're really here today to talk about is leadership. I've encountered many examples of leadership in my life. Some good, some bad. So when I talk about leadership, my leadership started at that age of 9 and what led me to where I am today. So my father, he went to the Naval Academy. He's a big guy, about 250 pounds now, but he wasn't much smaller when he was playing, actually. He played at the Naval Academy. He was a naval captain. He played football there. He was a bodybuilder at one point. Now he works as a banker, and he's one of these guys who does a lot of things. He also played for the Atlanta Falcons, so he's very athletic, but he's a very strong leader. And when you're a young girl, you don't know that your dad is a strong leader. You don't know what these things even mean. But when I was 9, I came up with this far-fetched idea that I was going to be an Olympian. And so there was one day when I was playing in a softball tournament, trying to reach my dreams. And when I started, I was absolutely horrible. I couldn't hit the ball, I couldn't swing the bat or anything like that, but I thought I was great. I thought my uniform was the sharpest, I was having a blast on the field, and I was going to make this happen. So one day we were playing against a team, one of the best teams in the league, and it's rec league, and I thought it was our world championships, it was our World Series, and this was a really big deal, and I was really excited to play in this game. So we go to the game, and I sit the bench. I don't play a single inning, and I'm devastated. I go home, and I am just full of tears. I'm crying, and my dad's trying to console me, and my parents don't really get it, because up until now, I never really expressed the interest that I really wanted to be an Olympian to them, that I really wanted to be good at something. So they don't really understand. And then finally I say to them, I was like, look, I really wanted to play this game. I want to be really good. And in my little 9-year-old brain, once again, I didn't know what that meant. So my dad sat me down and looked at me and said, hey, if you want to be really good at this, we'll help you be really good. But you're going to have to put in the time and effort to get there. You're going to have to work hard every day. You're going to have to go above and beyond yourself, and you're going to have to make this happen. We'll do whatever we can to help you, but you need to make this happen. Right then and there, with tears in my eyes, I told him that I would do whatever it takes. And that was my first example of leadership. He sat there and told me exactly what I needed to know. Not necessarily what I needed to hear at that moment. I would have loved for a dad to sit there and coddle me and tell me it'll be all right and everything's going to be okay. But he pulled me aside and told me what I needed to do to reach my goals. And that lesson would carry me through the rest of my life. Now, later in life, I came across another leader. Quite a different story, but all of these leaders have taught me something very important. I was playing softball at George Washington University, and softball at this point was my life. I lived it, I breathed it, I slept it. It was everything to me. My first year as a freshman, we had an okay season, but it wasn't great. So our coach got switched out. We had a new coach come in, and I was eager and excited. She had come from University of Georgia, actually, and we were super excited to have her, and we couldn't wait. I knew we were going to win. I knew we were going to do whatever it takes to win. And I got swept up. She came in making all these promises, how we would have a perfect season and do all this stuff. But unfortunately, it wasn't happening. And unfortunately for me, I was still swept up. I believed it would happen, and I lost sight of what really mattered. The coach became abusive, both physically, mentally abusive. And through that season, our season ended up actually getting canceled, my sophomore season. But the entire time, I was swept up with the idea that this is what we needed to do to win. This is what I need to be happen. And that was one of my leaders. Why was I not going to follow her? She knew what she was talking about. She had come from this program. University of Georgia softball is amazing, and she had come from this program, so she had to know what it took. But little did I know, she didn't know what it took, and she didn't know how to lead us. But from that lesson, from watching her and being so caught up in just doing whatever I take to win, I learned that there's more important things to winning, and there's more important ways to show your leadership, and it's not through force. A leader has to be both gentle, but also get the work done. Also do whatever it takes to achieve something. But there's a way to do that. And fortunately, I had that lesson. As devastated as I was, I had that lesson. And from then forward, I would use what I learned from that lesson to help my athletes. And that led me to where I am today. As an athlete advisor, as an advisor to the board of directors, I really make it a point to make sure I'm standing up for the athletes. Make sure I'm doing anything I can to help us achieve our goals. Now, finally, I learned that leadership doesn't always have to be the most vocal. That leadership can come in the smallest forms and allow you to do greater things than you ever imagined. So in the Sochi Olympics, we were driving these new sleds built by a small company called BMW. Absolutely amazing sleds. And if you know anything about bobsled, it's a huge sport in Germany, BMW headquarters. So BMW Germany doesn't know that BMW USA builds us these sleds. So of course they're furious, but we've got the fastest sleds in the world. And in bobsled, technology is absolutely everything. So now we've got these fast sleds. We come into Sochi, I have a great season, and I'm riding the high. I'm expected to medal this games, but not only expected to medal, I'm expected to contend for the gold medal, which is huge. I'm super excited about it. And I know I've got the equipment, I've got the coaches, I've got the perfect brakeman. I had a three-time summer medalist behind me in Lauren Williams. I was super excited about this opportunity. So we get to the Olympics. And at Olympic competition, you have 6 runs, 6 times down the track before you actually compete. So we're there and we're competing and we're training. And for the second day, we come down the track, and as we're making our way down the track, we go faster than we ever have. At this point, my brakeman, who has just started bobsled, we cross the finish line, and in bobsled, the brakeman's supposed to pull the brakes when we cross the finish line. Unfortunately, being a rookie and not necessarily understanding our speed, she underestimated how fast we were going. We went so fast, we went up the outrun, and she failed to pull the brakes. By the time she finally realized it was time to pull the brakes, our sled went headfirst into a plastic barrier. Pieces shattered absolutely everywhere. The sled was in pieces. I start screaming because I think my Olympics is over. There's no way they're going to be able to repair this sled. Now, I run up the track. I run up to my coach where he's standing in one of the curves to watch the other sleds going down. And I start telling him all this stuff is broken, the sled's in pieces. Our BMW mechanics come down the track, worried that I might be a little bit overreacting, and look at the sled. Their faces were the most stunned faces I have ever seen. Pieces of the sled, steel pieces of the sled, are bent in ways they could have never imagined. It looks like my Olympics is truly over. But luckily, this is where our mechanics came in. This is where their leadership stood more than anything else. Now, what they did over the next 24 hours changed my entire Olympics. So our mechanics came up with a solution. In the Team USA house, it's a place where friends and families of the USA athletes go and they watch the Olympics, they get a nice meal, they do all this stuff. And in Sochi, it was especially important, being that everybody was so far away from home. In the Team USA house, we have a model sled on display, a BMW sled. It's a sled that had actually been raced in competition, but we weren't using that. But it's also a sled that people could get in, and people were getting in, taking pictures and whatnot. So our mechanics went into the Team USA house, grabbed the sled in the middle of the day, and were pushing the sled through Sochi. They disassembled the sled, put the pieces of the sled into my sled, and got it together the next day. The next day, we come to the track. I look at my sled, and I see all these mismatched pieces. I see everything not put together, and I'm like, there is no way I could take this down the hill and be safe. But they disagreed. They told me it would be okay. They told me that I could do this. And reluctantly, I agreed with them. So we take the sled up to the top of the hill. I hop in the sled and drive down the track. Not only did I make it down, which was a grave concern of mine, we are talking, pretty dangerous sport, but I have the fastest time of the day. Now, when I came back up to the track, they were all there, our mechanics, hugging me and just celebrating the whole performance like it was an Olympic final. And that day, I learned that even though these were some of the quietest people I knew, they could impact leadership in big ways. From a moment I thought my Olympics was absolutely over, they restored a confidence in me, and they gave me the confidence that I needed to go out there and believe I can win an Olympic medal. And I did. And I have them to thank for it. Now, as much as I've learned from leaders, I do want to be able to give you guys something back, something to take home with. 3 leadership hacks. So as mentioned before, I am a 4-man pilot. Now, traditionally, women have not been allowed to drive a 4-man bobsled. And I say 4-man because it's still the language we use. It's 4-person now, but you get the picture. In 1938 and 1940, there was a woman named Catherine Dewey. And Catherine drove 4-person bobsleds. Not only did she drive them, but she drove them very well and won national titles both those years, beating her male counterparts. Now at this point, knowing that she had done as well as she did, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, made a rule. And they said, no women are allowed to drive 4-man ever again. I guess it's something with our ovaries and reproduction, something like that. I don't know. It gets in the way of driving a bobsled. I really haven't understood that yet. But up until this year, women have not been allowed to drive 4-man bobsleds. So, this year they made a rule change. And that's where we'll talk about taking risk. And as you'll see in the video, I finally did take a risk. And I started driving a 4-person bobsled. Oh, this is a different video. We could advance the slide. Yeah. So how did this come to happen? Well, after the Olympics, a lot of Olympic athletes take a little bit of time off. Yes, we have a competitive season every year. We have 8 races and then a world championships at the end of the year. But after a long 4 years of competing and training leading up to those Olympics, we need a little bit of break. And me, I had some injuries that summer, so I was recovering from some injuries, although I was training. So around about September, even though the season started in October, I have a procedure done, and it's done to my Achilles, and I'm really in a lot of pain, and I'm not really training. I'm pretty much laid up, and bobsled is the furthest thing from my mind. But out of the blue, I get a call from my CEO. And when he calls, you answer, and you answer on the first ring. So I answered. I was back home in Georgia, enjoying time with my family, not really thinking about anything. And he said, "Listen, I have this opportunity for you. I want you to think about it." So he called me up and told me that the International Federation was allowing women to drive 4-man bobsled, and that I had the opportunity to be the first to compete at the international level. Would I like this chance? And now, being in the position I am, I know I'm going to have to raise a lot of money. Bobsled's an expensive sport. To make this happen, I know I'm going to have to be faster and stronger than I ever was. And being laid out, I don't know how this is all going to turn out. I don't know what's going to happen. But I jumped at the opportunity. I decided to take that risk. I decided I was going to do this and do this 4-man and do whatever I could to make it happen. And through some bumps along the way, I learned a lot in the process. I did make it happen. And I was the first woman to win a medal in an international 4-man event. A pretty cool accomplishment. Thank you. But it's an accomplishment that wouldn't have happened without the willingness to take risks. And in business, in life, in bobsled, sometimes we're afraid to take those risks. And I was afraid to take that risk. 4-man bobsleds will go anywhere up to 98 miles per hour. They're even faster than a 2-man. Also, it depends a lot on the choreography of the guys behind you. They have to get in the sled, they have to get seated, they have to do all these things. And I have to pilot and be responsible for the 3 guys behind me. So it's a lot of pressure. But it's a risk I was willing to take. It's a risk that I was willing to take in order to advance myself and advance my sport. And then sometimes, despite your fears, you have to take those risks. Be willing to take those risks and move forward. So in that last video, what's interesting about it is the guy in the very back is my husband. I think it's somewhere in the vows that he has to push me. At least that's what I tell him. I don't think he reads the fine print. But that leads me to my next point about becoming a good leader. It's very important to me, or very important to good leadership, that you surround yourself with the correct team. Now, as the pilot of a bobsled team, you are the natural leader. You're the one in front all the time. You're the one steering the sled down the track. But you're also the one that usually gets recognized at the end of races. You're the one who's in front of the camera most of the time. So it's very important that you have strong leadership in the front of the sled. However, just because you're a pilot doesn't make you a strong leader. It's something that has to be developed. It's something that has to be learned. And part of it is because of your experience. And that's how you learn to become a good leader. And the other part is developing a good team around you. So one of my first lessons in leadership actually came as a brakeman. I was a brakeman in the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. And my driver, supposedly the leader of the squad, was a great athlete, but she was running into some difficulties at the Olympics. Her drives weren't working right, nothing was going right, and then she pulled her hamstring. So we get down to the run. We've just had a run. It was not a great run. We almost crashed, and she comes down, and her hamstring's really bothering her, and she gets out of the sled, and tears just continue to flow out of her eyes. She's just crying. Crying seems to be a lot of this speech, but anyways, she was crying nonetheless. And as a brakeman in the back of the sled, I'm looking at her, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? I'm not the leader of the team. But at that moment, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about being the leader and who was the leader. It was about the team, and it was about us together. So at that moment, I just turned and hugged her. And for the rest of the week, I reassured her that we'd be okay. And we were okay. And we won that bronze medal. But for her, the natural leader it was about the support team. It was about me coming in at the right moments and saying what I needed to say. For her, it was about surrounding herself with the right people to allow her to be the leader she could. And it's the same with me. I make sure to surround myself with people who allow me to be better people. And one of those is my husband. Now, I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world to see a lot of things, but the one constant in my life has been my husband. And fortunately for me, I do have a video of our engagement.
Das Mikrofon bekommt dieser junge Herr. Elana. Sie haben es.
So that was in St. Moritz, Switzerland. And the reason that has been such a key pivotal moment of my life, other than the fact that I'm married now, of course, is because he has taken my athletic performance to the next level. Not only has he shown me what it's like to be a leader, he's been a leader for me in the times where I've needed him most. So when I decided to take on this four-man project, he was all about it. And as you saw earlier, he hopped in the back of my sled without any question. And when I was forming this four-man team, a lot of the guys didn't want to slide for me. Even though I had medals, even though I was well accomplished, they didn't want to slide with a woman. This whole stigma about women in driving, I don't know, something like that. But it was very difficult to talk these guys into sliding with me. Fortunately for me, I had a ringer in the back. My husband is a very good brakeman, so as soon as he decided to slide with me, I had other guys hop on my team. And with this ragtag team, we managed to make the U.S. national team, and we're the first co-gender team to make the U.S. national team. So my final tip for becoming a good leader is to really define success. How you define success will change how you lead. Now, if you define success like my previous coach, with just winning and losing, it may blur your vision a little bit. But if you define the success by the values that are important to you, then it'll change how you lead. When I was in Sochi, at the top of the hill, starting the Olympic heat, I had no expectation of what I would do. I wanted to win a medal. I was happy if I could win a medal, but I wanted to do my best. That was key to me. I wanted to get down the hill the fastest, yes, but I wanted to drive my sled as best as I could. So for 3 heats of Olympic competition, I was the best. I led the race for 3 heats, which is huge. Unfortunately for me, in the 4th heat, I made a major mistake at the top of the track. I dropped time, lost a significant amount of time actually, and dropped to silver medal. Now, if I had just defined this success as winning a gold medal, I would have been devastated, heartbroken. But I define success as putting everything I can into an avenue, putting everything I can, working as hard as I can to accomplish a goal. And at that moment, I could celebrate that. I had a silver medal. I had accomplished something amazing, but I had done so because my definition of success was putting everything I could into something. And I did at that moment. And the reason it changed the way I led is because it's only encouraged me to do further things for athletes. Instead of hanging my head with a silver medal, I've used my medal to help athletes in any way I could. And if I truly was devastated, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done this year. And this year I've won a world championship. A huge success, but it wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't able to lead my team with the notion that we're going to go out there and do everything we can every single day to make this possible. And when you define success, it's very important that the values you that you hold are reflective in your definition of success and in your leadership. So one of the things I do is I work with an organization called Classroom Champions. And as you'll see from the photo, it's an organization that's very special to my heart. I work with kids in inner city schools. We record videos and send them to them. I value this very highly. It's something that's very important to me and something that affects my leadership. Giving back to the community is something that I define as a definition of success. So every single time I have an opportunity to use my medal to help me give back to the community, I'm going to do that. And it's paved the way. It's allowed other athletes to do the same. And that's what true leadership is. It's about inspiring people to do more than they can. And that comes from the fact of taking risks, making your definition of success, and surrounding yourself with the right people. Now, across the room, we have leaders in this room. It's a huge, accomplished room, but I hope you all will take that into consideration anytime you have to lead anything you're about to lead. Thank you guys for having me today. Congratulations to everyone. And I look forward to talking to you guys some more. Thank you.